Good morning, citizens of the realm. Um, I want to talk about Carl Benjamin. Recently, I met Carl Benjamin. I'd like to have a little chat about Carl Benjamin. Um, I was, I wanted to try and kind of write some of this down, but I haven't had time, so I was going to have to kind of wing it. And I wanted to write about not about Carl as such. It's about what that meeting left me with, the feeling that meeting left me with, and why I think it's important, right? So, well, there's something in there for us all to learn, Carl, right? Definitely there is. So, a bit of backstory. It's a friend of mine called Adam Coleman, who's a journalist from the US. He's on a bit of a book tour over here. He's just published his second book, and he was invited onto the Lotus Seekers with an interview. He was the guest for the day, or one of the guests, and he did an interview with Stelios. And before he went down, he got in touch with me and said, "Look, do you want to come hang out in London for a couple of days? I'm going down to meet the Lotus Eaters guys. I'm going to watch the show. Do you want to hang out?" I was like, "Well, it's all right with them. Yeah, sure." So they said yes. So came down. Me and Adam hung out on Monday night in London, and then went across to Swindon on the Tuesday to meet the guys, meet Stelios and Bo and all the rest of them. So first impressions, great setup. I mean, the guys worked very, very hard. It was everyone's thoroughly pleasant there. Lovely group of young men. Um, and hats off to Carl for building that. That's quite an achievement in and of itself. So I ended up having a chat with Carl. At first, Carl's an incredibly humble man. That's my first impression because there's a lot of things about Carl that I picked up on in person that don't come across on screen, right? And he's a very, very humble man. And when he first walked past me, I kind of sat on the couch and get up to introduce myself. And I thought, like, I'm a guest in his home here. It was a bit rude. I said, "Come on, David." So anyway, he goes out and he comes back, and I come to him and say, "Hi, Colin, so and so." I said, kind of explain to who I was. He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah." We had a brief chat, and then they went off to shoot the show, and I kind of walked around Swindon, which Swindon's like a lot of the towns in the UK. You could tell it was once an absolutely beautiful, thriving place, but it's kind of starting to die of this multicultural cancer that's kind of eating everything, which is a shame. So after the show, me and Carl go and have a chat in the kitchen. And, you know, I got to preface this by saying, look, I've met a lot of famous people in my life. I don't make videos on all the public figures that I've met in my life. But this meeting with Carl was different. There was something happened that was just different. And again, I think it's something we can all take from and learn from, right? So we go in and we have this chat. And we just look. I'm not going to divulge the details of the conversation, but there was nothing particularly special about it. It was the same conversation I'd have with anybody. State of the nation, buddy, Nigel, Tommy, um, Starmer. It was just the usual stuff. Bit of history, bit of observation, bit of like, come on, with the English, we've got this. Um, but it was observing Carl as a man that I was most struck. The first thing that I was struck by was there's an eminence from Carl that I can only describe. It was like sitting with an old Saxon king. Um, you can almost feel the Alfred coming out. It's just he's obviously steeped himself so deep that it's and for me, somebody who's very, very much aligned with sort of that same Cuthbert. Obviously, the Cuthbert and Alfred are intertwined. Without Cuthbert's blessing, Alfred could be king. And I'm sat there and I'm like feeling this thing come out of this man, this strong presence. But it wasn't like an aggressive thing. It was incredibly humble. It was full of humility. But it was just this strong presence of this Saxon ethos. Um, and it was literally, you could feel the ancient men of Wessex willing this man forward. It's quite an extraordinary thing. Um, and these aren't usual things that I get from people. This is why I wanted to make this video. This is quite unique. This sort of struck me as different. It's different, man. And the other thing that struck me was this compassion for his fellow man. There's times when we're talking about the English and the people and the weight that they're feeling and the downtrodden sense and the lack of hope and spirit. Carl's physically moved, and that's compassion. Now, there's this thing that there's a theory that people can have compassion for 30 people in their life. I think it's actually much smaller than that. I think if you're quite developed with your compassion, you can extend it to about 30 people. I think most people can have compassion for about 10 at most. There's only 10 people in your head at any one time that you can care about, which is why most modern leaders are absolutely dreadful, because they haven't let go of the ego enough to be able to expand their compassion to like hundreds, if not thousands and millions of people. And Carl just had compassion for his fellow man. I imagine if the world was right and the world was ordered and things were how they should be, then Carl would actually have compassion for greater than his fellow man. But right now, his immediate concern is the English. And these are the qualities that we expect from a leader. These are the qualities that we expect from a politician or a king, not from a bloody political YouTuber, right? So that struck me straight. It was like, wow, this is unusual. This is unusual. This is an unusual man. And it's when I was sitting talking to him, there was a steel within Carl. There was a gentle steel within Carl. Like, he's an immovable object, right? He has set his course and he's set his sight, and he's not going to move. He's just going forward. He's like, he knows the destination. He has to plot. He has to plot through treacherous waters the path, right? And I had this sense as I was talking to him. I was thinking, my God, this guy he hasn't just studied England. He hasn't just learned England. He hasn't just observed England. Carl is becoming England. And I don't mean the physical landmass, that's ridiculous. What I mean by that is, in the same way that Tolkien became England, Lewis became England, Carl is becoming a manifestation of the mighty heart of all. Okay? He's steeped himself in our traditions, he's steeped himself in our old language, in the ancient, the Old English. He steeped himself in the laws. He steeped himself in the creation and the setup and the structure of England, particularly prior to sort of 1919. And even when was it? The men got the vote, 1897. He steeped himself in all of these things to such a degree that he is becoming an embodiment of England. And it was quite profound. And Carl, to my mind, I mean, I could be incorrect here, but Carl, to my mind, he hasn't just studied the virtues. Carl's studied the virtues, he's memorized the virtues, and he's practiced the virtue. And this shows in what he's doing, what he's building. This shows in his output, his work output, which is tremendous when you look at it. He's not just creating this show. Like, when they built the Lord of the Seasons, I was building a TV studio for the Epoch Times and New Time or NTD TV in London. It's happening at the same time that GB News were building this. All these things were occurring at the same time. So he was in there building that, and I was across in Victoria and London building a TV station there. Pretty much exactly the same deal, same setup. And so I'm aware of what it takes to build these things. I was financed, called kind of self-financed a lot of this. So I'm aware of what it takes, and that is impressive in itself to keep the volume of output going that they have achieved. And then he's added in his new daily on top. The man is just exploding with driving force. You know, people talk a lot about having purpose, right? You have to have purpose in your life. Got to be on purpose. Got to be on purpose, and it's become a bit of a buzzword. Carl doesn't have purpose. Carl has a mission. Carl's on a mission. And I sense that very, very, very deeply from it. And after I left, I was for several days afterwards, I had a very deep impression. It was almost like a psychic imprint. It in a good way, it haunted me for several days. And I just couldn't, because we sat down and we talked, and nothing needed to be explained. We're English, but nothing needed to be said. I didn't know anything about his background. He didn't need to know anything about mine. We just sat down like two generals in a war. Where is the state of play? Where are we at? I was visiting his front, his line of defense, and he's giving me the lowdown on where everything is. That's kind of what it's like. Um, and nothing needed to be explained. There was the psyche of the English, this network, this psychic network that binds the English, that drew common law forward from. That was just present. Nothing needed to be said. And we were two Englishmen. We were two Englishmen who were meeting to discuss essentially the fate of the nation and our people and our direction of travel. Um, and like I said, afterwards, there was just this feeling, and it took me a few days to like, well, what is this? What is this feeling? It was brotherhood. It was the sense of brotherhood. Um, we're Englishmen, we have that sense of brotherhood. And I understood there's an excellent song by Fairport Convention called The Quiet Joys of Brotherhood. You should go and seek it out. It's beautiful. And I understood the meaning of that song after meeting Carl. And it wasn't that anything special particularly happened. I imagine Carl is the same with every guest he has in. I mean, he's incredibly hospitable. I mean, the whole team is incredibly hospitable. I got offered enough cups of tea to sink a Royal Navy frigate. But he's incredibly humble and very generous, a very generous man. And he didn't know me from Adam, but he treated me like an old friend. These are rare qualities in people. And the other thing is that he doesn't have an ego. Look, I'm somebody with a giant ego. I've got an ego the size of a small planet. I'm basically an introverted extrovert. I can kind of keep it under wraps, but every now and again I have to jump out and go, ta-da! It's just how I am, right? Give me a microphone and I'm a closet Freddy. So Carl doesn't have any of that. There's just a quiet humility to him. Like I said, it's the mighty heart of all. It's just something quite extraordinary coming out of this man. And this sense of brotherhood, this is like we all have this. We are a brotherhood. I met Mark from Feral Philosophy the day before. We had a very quick half an hour, 40 minutes. And it was a similar thing. You sit down and it's like one Englishman to another. It's like, hello, mate, how you doing? Right. Where are you at with your state of play? What's happening on your front? Oh, well, this is happening. All right. Okay. So what are your thoughts on, how do we get around this? We've got this particular problem coming up. What do you think? We're Englishmen. Nothing needs to be said amongst us. So I was really struck afterwards at this feeling of brotherhood, and I think this is what Carl's trying to build. Like I said, and I don't think Carl will be unique in giving this sense to me. I think Carl gives this to everyone. Like I said, nothing. I'm a nobody. I'm just somebody who is vain enough to think that they should put their thoughts on the internet. I didn't get any of that from Carl. So I got a sense of a man who loved his nation incredibly deeply, loved his people incredibly deeply, to such a degree that he has found a way to try and tip the balance. He's found a way to try and pull it back from the brink. And I got the sense that he's looking for something that is a self-repairing, undeniable mechanism for the preservation of our culture. It's the only way I can describe it. Right? So I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting to come away with that feeling. Really, Carl thought it would be like, all right, how you doing, mate? You all right? And it wasn't. It was quite a deep, profound meeting. And I've got to say that's got more to do with Carl than just with me. And, Carl doesn't take a compliment. I think he needs to take a compliment. He's done incredibly well. To go, well, I'm trying my best, man. Like, shut up, man. Just take it. Just take the compliment, man. Um, and he kept saying, well, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. And Carl isn't perfect, right? He's not. And him and I don't agree on not exactly everything. We agree on almost a lot of things, but not everything. And that's fine. Don't need to agree on everything. The general direction of travel for all of us is the same. Like we're not going to be exact on everything. So it have to be. That's not how the future is going to be. We're all going to have our own individual law, if you like. Um, and he's not perfect, and he's right. He isn't, but he's worthy. He's worthy, and he's worthy precisely because he has studied the virtues. He has learnt the virtues. He's memorized them, and he's practiced the virtue. And this is why he's worthy. And I think this is the lesson for all of us within this, that by becoming the thing we seek to become, we actually do become it. It begins to manifest and it begins to become our driving kind of catalyst. Um, and it was, yes, I think Carl's lesson for all of us is that we can and should become these better men. It's there. I think the path of certainly how to get it, the path of where we're going is uncharted. We're going somewhere new. We're going somewhere we haven't been before. But the path of how to become the men that can do that is there. Learn our history, learn our values, learn our virtues, memorize our virtues and become our virtues. This is the thing. And in that, I think the only other thing I can say is that metaphorically speaking, there are very few men that I would pick up my soul for. Very few. I'm quite an idealistic person. I struggle to work with people who I don't see as being good or worthy. Um, but I would pick myself. I'd pick my sword up for Carl Benjamin.